here we go. So tort law is, again, law where a lot of civil lawsuits are based on tort law, right? The purpose of tort law is really to be able to compensate individuals that have suffered some kind of damages by somebody else's wrongdoing. It doesn't have to involve a crime, but it can involve a crime as well, right? This is when you see cases that they go to criminal court as well as civil court. Probably a lot of you might not remember because you weren't old enough, but have heard of the O.J. Simpson trials. O.J. Simpson was criminally charged for murdering his wife, Nicole Simpson, and in criminal court he was found not guilty. However, Nicole's family sued him in civil court for damages, and the civil court decided he was guilty. So it's again, a crime is involved, but you know, there are two different courts you would go to. You know, the crime really punishes the wrongdoer, gives fines or jail time, right? That doesn't compensate the injured party. Criminal court will not provide compensation for the injured party. That's why we have tort law, and the injured party can go and recover damages based on tort law. So compensatory damages is defined as a monetary award equivalent to the actual value of injuries or damages sustained by the aggrieved party. There are special damages and general damages. You know, like it says, special damages would be medical bills, any extra additional expenses you had as a consequence of this incident happening, and general damages are generally bills you have, pain, suffering, and so forth, right? So there's intentional tort against a person. So we're, you know, there are torts against persons and torts against property, right? So against person would be assault and battery. Those are also, by the way, crimes, right? Assault is basically a threat, a word, or action intended to make somebody feel fearful of immediate physical harm. So threatening somebody to hurt them, right? That's assault. Battery is physical contact with another that is unexcused and intentional. So you purposely hit somebody, you purposely punch somebody, right? Purposely shoot somebody. And another form of intentional tort would be false imprisonment. This is when you hold somebody imprisoned without cause. We did have an interesting case in the textbook. It was a very short paragraph, but what basically happened is an individual was in jail and he was held by mistake. They mixed up paperwork and they mixed up the names. So I don't remember the time frame, but he was held in jail without cause, right? So he was supposed to be released and he wasn't. So he sued the county of Los Angeles and recovered damages because of false imprisonment. So that's intentional tort against persons. Defamation is another form of tort. Defamation is when basically you hurt somebody's character, somebody's reputation by saying things that are not true, right? So the following 4 points have to be present in order to claim defamation in a lawsuit. So the defendant made a false statement of fact. So it has to be false. If somebody tells the truth about you, if I say Haley was on our meeting and wore a red sweater, that's true, right? There's nothing wrong with that. It's also not a defamatory statement besides the point, but if I said, Lily never shows up to my meetings, she's such a bad student, right? That would be defamation. That is a false statement, first of all, because she is showing up to our lectures, and saying that she is not a good student because she's not showing up is wrong. So that would be, the statement has to be false, right? The statement was understood as being about the plaintiff and tended to hurt the plaintiff's reputation. So it has to be about a specific person. The statement was published to at least one person other than the plaintiff. So if you say something directly to somebody and nobody else is around, you could say anything you want, insult the person, you know, say bad words, make false statements to that person. But nobody else is there to hear it. So that's not defamation. That's just being rude, or, you know, you can't sue based on defamation. There has to be at least one person that saw it, or it has to be published somewhere, right? If the person is a public figure, a famous person, basically, he or she must also prove actual malice. So if the person suing would be a public figure, they have to prove that it was intended to be malice, right? With malice. Let me just stop here. Any questions about defamation? Okay. Let me go on, and then if you have questions at the end, we can always go back and cover that. Yeah. The next type of tort covered in our textbook is fraudulent misrepresentation. So this is when you intentionally, when there's intentional deceit for personal gain. Somebody is lying to another party to receive personal gain. This could happen. Sometimes salespeople might be tempted to do that to convince you to buy something, right? So it has to be a fact that was misrepresented. It can't be somebody's opinion. It can't be a salesperson saying, oh, this is the best car you can get in town. That's obviously an opinion. It's not really a factual statement that can be measured. But if it's saying, this car gets you 50 miles to the gallon, but the car actually only gets 40 miles to the gallon, that is misrepresentation, right? So that if you buy the car based on that statement and you find out it is actually indeed not getting that kind of mileage, you can sue them based on fraudulent misrepresentation, right? Of course, you have to prove everything. So an intent to induce another to rely on the misrepresentation has to have occurred. In other words, a salesperson did it knowing that you're going to believe him or her, right? And you're believing that person. You have suffered damages as a result. So are you suffering damages when you're buying a car and you think you're buying a car that performs a specific way, but it's not? Yes, because if you had known how the car actually performs, you probably would not have bought it and you would have had the cash still, right? And there has to be a connection, of course, between the misrepresentation and the injury suffered. So the misrepresentation has to be the cause of it, right? Questions about fraudulent misrepresentation? I have another slide on it. So again, it has to be a statement of facts, not opinions. If somebody says this is the best dealership in town, maybe it's not the best dealership, but who decides? How do you measure best? Maybe in the salesperson's opinion, it is the best dealership, right? So that would be just an opinion. You can't sue if they say something like that, right? Negligent misrepresentation. So there's a key difference between intentional and negligent, whether the person is making the statement, the false statement actually knew that if it was false, right? So if he or she knew it was a false statement, it was intentional, right? It also occurs when a person owes a duty to another to give correct information. So if you go to a car dealership, does the salesperson have a duty to tell you the truth about the car you are inquiring? I see shaking heads. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Because as a customer, I have to be able to rely on that. I don't have to question if the salesperson tells me something about the car, whether it's true or not, right? Common business practices, right? So the salesperson owes me a duty to tell me the truth, right? Any questions about fraudulent misrepresentation before I move to wrongful interference? There's a lot of information in today's lecture. And again, I kind of cut it down a little bit, but I didn't want to take these parts out that I didn't take out because it's very important information. Next topic is wrongful interference with a contractual relationship. If someone knows that there's a contractual relationship between two parties and they do something to break that relationship, that would be a fraud. So let's say I hired a person named Peter to paint my house. And we have a contract. I'm going to give Peter $3,000 and Peter is going to paint my house inside out. So along comes maybe another person, let's call her Jennifer. I hope we have no Peter and Jennifer in the class listening. So if we do, I apologize. But let's say Jennifer comes along and she knows that we have a contract. And she comes to me and she says, you know, I know you have a contract with Peter for $3,000, but I'll paint your house for $2,500, right? she offers me a lower price because she knows what the price is that Peter offered me, right? So she's trying to cause me to break the contract with Peter. If I break the contract with Peter and enter into contract with Jennifer, Peter can sue Jennifer for wrongful interference of a contractual relationship, right? She intentionally caused me to break the contract with Peter, right? So that is a tort. So maybe Peter already bought some paint. Now he has no use for it. That he could ask for reimbursement for that. He could even ask for reimbursement for the loss of profit, right, that he could have made from this deal. It's similar if you do wrongful interference with a business relationship. Now, a business relationship is not necessarily when there's a contract, but there's a relationship between customers and a company, right? If you conduct a predatory behavior to drive customers from one business to your own, or to drive the competitors out of the market altogether, that would be wrongful interference with a business relationship between the business and its customers. Any questions about wrongful interference? Let me see if I have. Okay. Now we're moving on to torts that are concerned with trespass to personal property. So there's trespass to land, when you step foot on land that you're not allowed to step foot on without permission, right? That means entering above, below, onto the surface. So, you know, below, of course, there's a certain footage that you're not supposed to enter, same with underground, right? That would be trespass to land. And then trespass to personal property is taking someone's property without permission, right? Taking personal property away, that is not land, right? Conversion still has to do with personal property. Wrongfully taking or retaining possession of someone's personal property and placing it in the service of another. If I take somebody's laptop and give that laptop to somebody else to use, I'm not using it, I don't have a benefit from it, but I'm converting it from, you know, that one person to another person. That is a tort as well. It's at the same time a crime. Again, crimes are involved in these as well, right? But you would sue in civil court based on tort law. Good intentions are not a defense. You can't be a Robin Hood and take property from somebody and give it to somebody else. It's still illegal. So, any questions about that? Okay, I am going to